live. So I'm going to give Nate and Kyle a chance to share it onto their page for anybody tuning in. It is episode 27 of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. I'm really excited to be here with Nate. And how do I pronounce your last name, Nate, correctly?
Reffell.
Reffell. Nate Reffell from Goose, and Kyle McHugh from Samson and Surrey. And we already have, hi, Jess. Thank you for tuning in, Jess. So I always start off with my first question to everybody is, and really collaborate, because everybody's responsibilities of their job is different. So Nate, I would love for you to, I'll start with you and talk about what your current role is, and then maybe what your new role is going to be. That would be great. And then Kyle, have you explain what your job and your responsibilities are?
I'm like still trying to share I can't find it. But, I'm sorry.
It should be right underneath like the.
Oh, I see it now. I see it now. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah,
I just had to refresh.
Yeah. And then it should go.
That.
All right. You share it.
Perfect. Cool. All right.
All right.
Hey, guys. I'm Nathan Reffell from Houston, Texas. Currently, right now, I'm the Texas Grey Goose brand ambassador here in the southern region. And I just currently accepted a role in Atlanta, Georgia, for the multicultural brand ambassador, portfolio ambassador for Bacardi. So that's starting literally tomorrow.
I'm sure Texas is probably mourning your loss, since I know everybody knows you there and that town. And what are your what were your current responsibilities in the Grey Goose role?
Just basically being, vodka, just preaching the vodka gospel, I guess. But also just, I think always as a brand ambassador is somebody who embodies the brand, who also is very passionate about the brand and the category. And I think, especially in the craft world, it was important to put vodka in a different light, or just give bartenders a different light of what vodka is and what it can be when it comes to craft cocktails. So I think a lot of that was my job. But then also just being a servant in the community and just making sure, I'm using this brand to bring the community together and create moments that, really help them love the brand.
That's pretty awesome. And Kyle, what is your role? And what do you do? Sure. Everything.
Oh boy, as much as I can, as little as I can. A director of brand advocacy is my technical title with Samson and Surrey, but as with most relatively small companies, you wear as many hats as you need to that day to get the job done. But within that role, I mostly have an amazing team of ambassadors that work all across the United States. And I'm really in charge of training and advocacy efforts to trade, to consumers, to everybody all across the world for our amazing portfolio of spirits, which includes Widow Jane, Blue Coat Gin, Few Spirits, Tequila Ocho, Mezcal Vago, and Brendan French Single Malt.
Oh, very cool. I didn't know about the single malt. I didn't realize you had Tequila Ocho as well. Very nice. Yes, we love our Ocho. Just sad for missing Tomas Estes. Had a great interview here with Tomas and Julio on here. It was fantastic. Those guys are just legends, and so I'm glad I got to talk to them recently. All right, so what led you? So both of you guys have interesting backgrounds within the industry, did different roles. So tell me a little bit about what you were doing before you became a brand ambassador. What made you become a brand ambassador? Nate, I'll start with you.
I think it's like most bartenders, you just kind of fall into it. But I was going to school for fashion design. And the reason I started bartending was to supplement, paying for school and to live. And it just kind of ended up rolling into being a full-time career. And then, career-wise, I started just I threw myself into just working full-time as a bartender. So started going to all the conferences, started, just doing all the tests, doing all the competitions. And I started, just looking at some of the brand ambassadors of the world, the Colin Appiahs, the Angus Winchesters. And it's like, man, how do I go down that career path? And I've been one of the fortunate ones to have it kind of paved out for me, as I've gone along. But, really, I just threw myself into it and it kind of just rolled into it.
Who gave you your first job again?
Hendrick, technically, it was William Grant. I started off as a Sailor Jerry rep for a few months. And then also I started working with the Hendricks team. So William Grant, basically.
And where did you meet Charlotte again? Because right, you met her, and that's how
So I met Charlotte Voisey during my Bar 5 day, and I told her, I was like, "Oh, I'm working for Taylor Jerry right now," and she was like, "Oh, they're hiring a position in Texas." So I was like, "Yes, right up my alley." But yeah, it just happened that like I took Bar 5, and just like the right people were in front of me like throughout my whole career, and I mean, I guess a lot of it is just like the right time, but like just me putting myself in those situations or getting there just happened to lead to where I am today. It's absolutely insane when I look at it.
No, but it's true. You have to be they say, you know, timing is everything, right? And being in the right place, right time. But it also, you took the initiative to take Bar 5. It's like people taking the initiative to take WSET, or, you know, it's taking those initiatives to go to conferences, whether you're being paid to or not, just for the networking, for the people you're going to meet and to continue learning. Your network expands, because everything about being a brand ambassador, as we know, your network really is your net worth. And also, you knew what you wanted. So putting yourself out there by telling Charlotte, like, hey, like, I would like to do, you know, I love being a brand ambassador. I would like to do more of this, you know, then it was like, there you go. Some people don't express what they want or what they need. So then nobody else knows, and then they don't get the job, and then they get pissed off why they get overlooked. I'm like, well, if you don't tell anybody, nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Yeah.
Yeah. So good for you for putting it out there. And now it's led to the career that you are. Now, how did you get the Grey Goose role? How did you get into Bacardi?
So they had just hired a portfolio ambassador here in Houston, which was huge for us, Bacardi wise, because we didn't have very good relations with Bacardi. I know being a part of the USBG, you know, the leadership, we didn't really have that in between. So once we got that portfolio ambassador, it was Dwayne Fernandez, things just blew up for Houston. So they started looking at Houston as like a really major market, and as opposed to they were usually like hiring at Austin and Dallas all the time. And so they opened up a position, but they were going to initially hire in Austin. And I was the only one interviewing in Houston. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. I may or may not get it. Looks like they're going to hire in Austin, but I'm going to go anyway. So I went to the interview, and I guess, you know, Matt and Adrian were impressed with me, and they ended up creating a position in Houston for me. So it was really like, again, like I was just fortunate, man.
That really is cool. So fun. It says a lot more than you just being fortunate. You're obviously very good, and you are very charming, and you have great talent. So they saw something, and good for them to being like, yeah, we need this guy on our team, and let's make Houston happen.
Yeah.
And we're going to get a little bit more about what your role is, because it's a really great story as well. But Kyle, I want to start with you. What were you doing before? And what are you, you have an interesting story before you got to Samson and Surrey.
Yeah, it's a windy road, but you know, I love what Nate just said too and I think it's at the heart of brand ambassadorship. It's such about the person and the person's talents and connecting it to the brand. So there's a perfect example that Bacardi had this idea, well, Austin is the place to be for us, which so many brands do have that idea when it comes to Texas. But here comes this talented person out of Houston who let them, to your point, Elaine, who let them know that I'm interested in this. And they changed their entire plan around the person because they really believed in what Nate could bring to the role. That is, I think, management of ambassadorship done perfectly. Because if you got the right person on the right brands, that's what matters.
Big things will happen. Really, I've seen it happen.
Big things
just like somebody just embodies that role so well that like the entire community just completely, you know, wants to get involved with that brand because of a person. It's really just like the key to just great brand ambassadorship.
Absolutely. No, really, really great points. So Kyle, tell us about your windy road.
The abridged version is I spent about 10 years running restaurants all around the country. Started in DC while I was in college with the Clyde's Restaurant Group. Moved up from doorman / bouncer to managing some day shifts while I was a senior at university at a place called the Tombs, still beloved part of my bar history. Was a bartender there in a very bar-centric concept with Clyde's Restaurant Groups. I was a trainer of all the roles across the 10 units I think they had back then in Maryland, Virginia, DC. Moved west, moved to California, to Los Angeles. Worked for PR for a hot minute. I worked in finance for MTV for a hot minute.
Wow.
None of my gigs. Went back to restaurants with Houston's there. They had no bartender hiring. Like, we'll start you on the floor. Great. Somebody doesn't show up for service bar. I'll take service bar. 100% fresh juice. This is 2000.
Wow.
First time I ever worked in a
early adopters.
Yeah.
Early adopters. Fresh margaritas, Southern California. We were going through 10 gallons of lemonade, fresh squeezed lemonade a day. I mean, I got my chops, and you couldn't cut a garnish ahead of time. You had to cut everything all anew.
Whoa.
So I got hurt that first night in service bar, as often you do. But then you learn by getting in the weeds like that. And so I worked for 4 different Houstons. I went into management for them, bar manager, service manager. They moved me to Chicago in 2001. And then I moved to Weber Grill restaurants had started, and I went back to bartending with them, talked my way, bitched my way, complained my way into being the corporate beverage director for their 5 units. So did that for about 5 years before the downturn. And in 2007, I got laid off as the market started to collapse. And so started my own consultancy. Not I'm out of work, but actually was consulting on beverage programs and those items. And I was starting my own bottle shop. So I started my own off-premise that was called Drinks Over Dearborn. Took about a year to get open. Started teaching Le Cordon Bleu, wine and beverage for them. And then also started working for LeBlanc Cachaça. They'd approached me. I'd been working with LeBlanc as part of my programs at Weber. And they're like, hey, if you're free, we would love for you to do your mixology thing. We all called ourselves mixologists.
Yes, the mixology thing. I love it. Mixology
I'm not just a bartender. I'm a mixologist.
Mixologist.
And so I muddled limes all over Chicago on behalf of the Cachaça. And eventually worked with Navon for a summer, worked with Navon back before it went away as part of House Marnier and back in the Hennessy days.
Yep. I remember Navon.
And it is delicious product. Just, it's a lot of vanilla.
It's vanilla Grand Marnier. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and good. 100% Madagascar vanilla. Delicious. Anyway.
Sounds expensive to make.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
And
vanilla
the signature drink was pineapple juice with this. And, man, that was a lot of sugar on the nightly rounds out there. But then Diageo had a role, Master of Whiskey role, that had opened up in Chicago. And so I left the store, closed the store, went to work for them for about 5 years. And then Samson Surrey had started. And when our program ended up closing down, Samson Surrey said, hey, we love what you did over there at Diageo. We're starting this thing. Would you be interested in working the craft spirit side? And my heart was always in entrepreneurship and supporting craft and local. And so taking that big box, amazing training I got with Diageo, started working with one brand, a few spirits back then, and now we're up to those 6.
That's incredible. That is a winding road. I also worked I've worked in different roles. I was gonna say, Kyle, not as many as you. I think not on the hospitality side or as many Nate. I also worked in fashion. I worked in fashion. I actually worked. My first ever real job in Manhattan was I worked in graphic design. I was really bad at that. I really was, but I went into sales because I was good at that. And then I got into the fashion industry running a showroom. And my job when I started in the liquor industry was I was a promotional model for Diageo. Like I was one of the samplers, you know, going up to people, offering them a Tanqueray and tonic and bars. But I was working full time as the international sales manager for a lingerie company. And then I was doing promotional work in the evenings. So at one point in my career, I could actually say I sell panties and booze for a living.
You have to enunciate that very carefully.
Exactly.
As you went through that.
Yeah. Panties and booze. Yes. But yes, I remember meeting my ex-in-laws and that's what they asked me. They're like, so Ling, what do you do? I'm like, I sell panties and booze. How about you?
Sounds like a real charmer.
Tough one to follow.
Yeah, tough one to follow. They were like, all right, then. All right. You know, they were like perfect match. All right. So that's so great though. I was gonna say, so all right, Nate, I want to talk to you because you started leading into it about how you got the role for Grey Goose, but you were also working, with Bobby Ugle and some hardcore craft cocktail bars, which I know Bobby has one vodka. They have, as we talked about yesterday. Vodka was definitely, back then, for a long time, it was like, no vodka, nobody would sell vodka. They wouldn't touch vodka. And then everybody suddenly started like owning homes and they were like, fuck, vodka pays the bills. So everybody switched mindsets.
Exactly.
They were like, I have kids now and I need to be.
We got programs to pay for, man. Let's start sending this stuff.
Yeah, craft is great, but in 30 seats is nice, but I gotta pay some bills, so maybe not so much.
Exactly.
So how did you end up falling in love with like Grey Goose, and especially Grey Goose, because it was so far out of the craft market for a long time?
Especially, I mean, Grey Goose really, showed me that a vodka can be a well-crafted spirit that actually reflects the ingredients that it's made from. And for the longest time, I just thought that vodka was made from just whatever discards that people got, which a lot of it still is. But at the same time, Grey Goose and the approach that Francois has to putting into the product is just on the level, I think, with like any cognac or any well-made whiskey out there. There's a lot of work and dedication that goes into making sure that it's a quality product. And although, yeah, it's, big bottle serve, that's where we make our money from, obviously, but still, I mean, it's something that you can be proud of to make a nice martini with, or, feature on your menu. I remember, back in my bartending days when I was running programs, like that was one thing that, I was important. If I'm going to put you on the menu, it's going to have to be a quality product, quality spirit. I'm not just going to throw, I'm not going to say any brand names, but like, Joe Schmo vodka on my menu just because they're tossing some money at me. But like, it's a mixture of just like price point and then also just quality as well too.
Right. When did you get introduced to the brand? But there was a specific story, wasn't it? A USBG
event?
So
it was a USBG event. That's what I really like got to know about it. And they had a program called Field the Bottle, or I think it was called Field the Bottle or Farm the Table. I can't remember. But Grey Goose Le Melon was released, and I was not a big flavored vodka person at all, and that was just kind of a game changer for me when I tasted Le Melon, and just I was like, dude, they really put some hard work into like making sure that flavor is just on point. And still to this day, even though it's not out anymore, it's still my favorite expression of the Grey Goose flavors out of all of them. But when I got to, like meet Francois and just see the passion that he had for vodka, which I was like, what? And the whole, 5-step process and making it, I was like, okay, this is serious. They put a lot of work into it. Just like most, bartenders and craft bartenders put work into their drinks. They're putting the work into their products. So it was great.
And how do you win other bartenders over? Tell them. I would love the story you told me yesterday, which was about bringing them to Miami, but like the program you guys had. And
oh yeah, so I mean the Espresso Cocktail Competition was kind of a local competition, but it was based in 3 different cities, and it was really targeting bartenders who didn't really have a light shown on them. Every major city has their superstars, they have their big names, but there's always those up and coming bartenders that you can really just kind of embrace. And I think as brand ambassadors, we kind of have our favorites in the city, and we just kind of like either push them to do competitions or push them to do things like that nature. And this was a really great opportunity for a lot of the younger bartenders to really make their name known. So they submitted a cocktail, and we chose the top 5. We flew them out to Miami and just really gave them the brand ambassador experience and kind of made them Grey Goose ambassadors for the week. And they ended up in turn coming back home and just literally being like, I have like a little army of just like Grey Goose ambassadors after that, because, they love it now. They preach the gospel. They see what I see, and they have a passion for it. So in turn, they go back to their respective bars and they sell the hell out of Grey Goose. So it was a really successful program.
No, it sounds like making bartenders your advocates. It's like, the thing and the consumer.
Makes the job easy.
That makes the job easy. It's everybody's goal. Is like, how do you turn that person into your advocate? And turning bartenders to love vodka, especially like a Grey Goose is, which Grey Goose is an excellent product. But as you said, a lot of people think it's a club vodka and things of that nature. So that's really, really cool. I love that. I love that story. All right. So we're also going to talk about, because this is a big thing. So being a brand ambassador is a lot about giving presentations, right? Being able to speak, to alter your presentation to the audience. And it's not a skill that everybody naturally has. A lot of people struggle with it. It's, the first time you speak in front of the trade can really make you very nervous. I know it still does to me sometimes. My peers sometimes are it's the one thing people say on the show all the time. They're like, oh my God, presenting in front of my peers is like my worst fear, like that somebody's going to call me out on something. But you were saying yesterday, and Kyle, I guess I'll start with you since we just heard from Nate. Nate, we'll go into your story. You were a master of whiskey, right? And masters of whiskeys really have to give, a lot of presentations. That's like the main part of your job is doing a lot of whiskey. And whiskey, of all the categories that we're in, whiskey is where consumers and the trade think they're masters at it, especially consumers, right? They've read a book.
They will eat you alive.
They will eat you alive. And like every other thing, you can talk about vodka all day, and consumers will be like, all right, that sounds about right. Or gin, they don't know that much. They know a little, but whiskey is something that they get like really passionate about, And so, Kyle, for you, like, was there any training on the job? I mean, we both worked at the same company, but Masters of Whiskey, just so you know, Nate, was like they got all the special stuff. Everybody else got nothing. They got all the good training.
They were the babies.
All the trips to Scotland. Like, we got nothing. Like, I had to beg and scrape and steal for everything I got. Kyle, they were spoiled. But Kyle, so what did you guys do? And how did you learn to be good at presenting?
Oh, so much wrapped up in there. And in the defense, Elaine, of the consumers who do know so much about whiskey, they've read several blogs on the internet. So they're
experts.
They've done the research. They put their time in. And also, several of their friends have been to Kentucky, so they know a lot about Scotch.
Oof. They know a lot about Scotch out of Kentucky. Yeah.
Give them their background.
Pieces of paper on the wall too that they printed out. Okay, so let's see. I guess to your point, the skill set of being an incredible bartender is not one-to-one with the skill set of being an incredible ambassador. And then there's a whole other conversation there about the skill set of managing and being able to show ROI on the ambassadorial effort, right? So I'll throw that can of worms out there right now, that Pandora's box. We'll hit it as we come back to it.
I would like to hit that.
To answer your question more directly, interestingly, I think we evolved the Master Whiskey program internally and with the support of, the agency that was really hosting the program at that time, which was called MKTG. From within, what many of us realized in this program that was really at the dawn of ambassadorship. I know when I was running restaurants in Chicago and I met Charlotte Voisey coming for the first time to Chicago talking about Hendrick's Gin, I met Simon Ford talking about, I almost said Ford's Gin, which he talks about, talking about Plymouth Gin at the time. And then we had Martin Duffy in Chicago, and he was part of this group, and they brought them all out, including Evan Cotnach, who was over from Scotland. Well, he had moved to the US by that point. And here's like 10 people all in kilts at that point, hosting this early kind of in the dawn of mixology educational thing that we were working on. So that was, to me, the first time I'd seen a brand ambassador. And I think to Nate's point, like, I like this. Where does this go? I didn't know this was a thing because at the time, as I was doing my, what am I going to say? Not Master of Wine, the other one, Corda Masters certifications. Wine education and certification was really the only thing available in its day. Bar 5-day had just gotten started, and outside of New York, it was barely really known. And so I just remember seeing Marty present at a whiskey thing when I was running a barbecue and whiskey focused place with the name Weber Grill on it, this American icon. We were featuring these American whiskeys and taking my first trips for work to Kentucky long before the multi-million-dollar visitor experiences were there. When the Kentucky Bourbon Trail, I don't think, was an actual trademarked thing at that point.
There was like 3 distilleries.
Right. And so, but if I think about it, like I'd worked for Kaplan, so I'd been teaching adults how to take the LSAT test, how to take, the GRE, the GMAT test up in front of a room. I'd been part of student government. I'd done comedy in college. I'd done improv. So I had I had no problem ever being on stage. I'm one of those extroverted introverts who, like, if you turn the light on and put me in a room, like 100, 1,000 people, that's fine. 20 people in a room that I barely know, I'm in the corner drinking a drink, and we'll see how it all goes.
Exactly. The same as me.
Yeah.
But like being up in front of the group, I've been doing that a lot of my life. And so talking about whiskey, I remember I had my GM in Chicago at Houston's. I'd done a pre-shift and I was the bar manager, and we were talking about Honig Sauvignon Blanc. And at the pre-shift, like, I'm going to talk about the bar stuff. I'm the bar manager, and I tell this story about visiting Honig when I was in California working, and Michael Honig, and how the family's involved in the operation. And I get done, and my GM pulled me aside and he said, I got to say, every time you're in the building, do that. When you're talking about things that like that, and you do that about, you know, spirits and wine and beer, your eyes light up and you exude this thing that the whole staff shuts up and pays attention to, unlike usual, unlike me when I talk about anything. So you just do that because it seems to make you really happy when everybody clues in on that. And so, you know, you have those moments in your life, and Nate was talking about it. That was a seminal moment for me, going to my my CMS training, my intro training, when there was only like 3 tests in the whole year, that I crashed in Cincinnati with a pocket full of bartender cash from the night before. Hey, did anybody not show up? Here's $500 cash. Yes, somebody didn't get on the plane. Have a seat. And I got my intro sommelier, you know, piece of paper that way. Yeah, you know, you don't know until you try, right? You don't know until you put it out there. But seeing these master, you know, master sommeliers talking about terroir and earth and soil and France and Burgundy versus Bordeaux and subclimates, microclimates, you're just like, oh, lifelong learning, excitement, enthusiasm, and something I'm really passionate about. I can do that for a living. And now I can do that for spirits and beer and things in an industry that I'd never seen before. That all, I think, fed into what became the, you know, as I was running classes in my store, the local Diageo team coming through, like, we've got this thing that's opening. You seem to really like whiskey. You've got a lot of it here in the shop. Maybe you do this for us, and you get a company card, and you tour around the world, and you learn from the best of most distilleries how it all works. Paid vacations. You're like, I'm an entrepreneur. Talk to me about the paid vacations. Talk to me about the healthcare.
Yeah.
And that led to 5 years. And to your point, Elaine, I mean, really a great training ground. And the title Master of Whiskey was handed to us, right? It was a marketing term that would have been trademarked. So what we saw inside out was, let's really earn this title. And we really changed the program from within to, you don't get handed the title. You come in as an ambassador. You go to Scotland. You, at the time, go to Ireland, go to Canada, go to Kentucky, go to Tennessee, do the work, take the tests. And eventually, once you prove your mettle, then we will give you internally that title. And it became a really big ceremony for us, for our team, before that program came to an end.
That's amazing. And for you, to get back to one point about the presentations, so for you presenting, it was just something, because you've been doing it for so long, it became just a natural thing. There was no formal course. Like when new brand ambassadors came in, that they kind of make you go through to present the brands, you know, to really say it. So they're saying it with that same passion.
Well, great point. And thanks for pulling me back.
And Nate, I knew you had a question.
No, I really do appreciate from you, Kyle, like saying that you had to grow into that, because I know I was not a vodka expert. I'm still not a vodka expert. You know, as a brand ambassador, like, to me, like, you're just constantly having to hone and train yourself. And that adds to, you just keep adding to that presentation. You just keep adding, you know, experiences. You keep adding things to your style of presentation. So it's definitely an evolving, you know, thing when you're talking about any subject.
No, I think it's such a great book, because so many people tell me, like, the panic, you know, I've talked to a lot of new brand ambassadors, and the panic of, like, oh my God, I have to learn. And I've made this mistake. Like, I have to be an expert in the whole thing. Like, I have to know everything. And then you present too much, and then people get really bored because you're not presenting with passion. You're just kind of like regurgitating information from the slide, and you're saying it out there. And I have definitely have killed some presentations because I've tried to do that. And then I know when I talk about things that I really know a lot about, or at least I just pick the things that I am passionate about within that subject, because I know it pretty well, then I kill it. It's like, I don't need to know, like, every single piece of the mash bill. It's just like, talk about the mash bill, but I don't have to get to the nitty-gritty. Sometimes, you know, it's something you have to learn, or something somebody needs to tell you. Like, find the things and then keep adding on the layers, as you said, Nate. Like, you can add on one more thing, but master the thing you do know and say it well.
Yeah,
I think is a good point. Kyle, what were you going to say about the new people coming in, presentations?
Oh yeah, well, and I have an analogy to what you just said, Elaine. So don't let me forget, because I may.
All right, analogy.
Mark, pin in it. As you recognize people coming in, to our point, everybody's got these different skill sets, right? You're looking for the right person. You're looking for that person who can do the unicorn things that ambassadors do, which is speak bartender and walk in and feel at home in the hospitality setting at its best, and then also who are able to take 8 a.m. meetings on the coast and 8 p.m. meetings on the other coast, and meetings, in Nate's case, probably there's some French meetings that you got to get on whatever hour they want to do it on. Like, you're never off. And so presentation skills are a huge part of it. But like, maybe this person's coming in and they're amazingly structurally, they're amazing at that, but they're not amazing in front of the room and they're terrified of it. So you find and give your ambassadors the tools and the training in order to get them there. My journey was not that fear. I had other fears, I guess. But I definitely have worked with ambassadors where, like, okay, well, let's get you to Toastmasters. Let's get you experience in front of rooms in different settings. Plus, just getting up there and doing it is how you get over that intimidating Friday GSM, all hands, 200 people. Everybody looks like their puppy died the minute before they walked in the room in a suit at 8 a.m. That is a room that until you do it, you don't know, and you got to do a couple of them before you really feel like, I got this.
Let me ask you this: how do you feel like COVID, during COVID times? I know I've had to change my presentation style because of COVID. Virtually doing virtual presentations, it was crazy because you don't really see anybody half the time, or you can't really see their reaction. So I feed off of that so much. I didn't realize it, and so when I'm doing these GSMs and there's like 200 people, I'm like, I feel like I'm talking to myself right now. It was such an adjustment. But I really had to change up my style of presentation because I feed off of people's expressions and people looking at me.
Oh yeah, well, I do. So I think we all do. Yeah.
You respond to micro expressions, you respond to body language, and the screen just doesn't give you that, let alone energy. So if you're up in front of that room at the lectern, and the PowerPoint's flashing behind you, you can read the room. And again, that room full of the distributor sales folks is a tough room to begin with.
Yeah.
And no matter what, I remember the first time I did a Southern, back then not Glazer, Southern Wine and Spirits training, I think it was LeBlanc, and all suits, Jimmy Tomaselli is introducing me, who I love, great guy, head of sales. And I go up and I do my bit and I come off and I'm just like, because I'm not getting anything from him. So I'm tap dancing harder, I'm telling more jokes. I'm talking way too fast. And I get done and I go to Jimmy and then I get the polite applause and I go to the back and I'm like, Jimmy, I'm sorry, man. I promise you, I'm really
this isn't
normally good at this.
Yeah.
And he's like, Kyle, you killed it. Are you kidding me? You got 3 questions. We never get questions.
No, that's such a great
tough room. And Nate, so your point, when the energy's gone, and I've talked to musician friends, actor friends, all of the stuff converting to digital, we're all that way of like, I'm getting nothing. So all I can do is keep plowing on.
Yeah, exactly. Just like,
I just have a fun time. Have a fun time. I start making fun of things. I'm like, great. That was a great answer. The question you just asked me, I'm going to answer it. Nobody asked me anything. I'm like, let's go. I'm like, so you wanted to know, the calories on, this RTD. Well, here you go. And my client was like rolling. She's like, they really don't fucking talk. Because I'd be like, questions, anyone? And I'd be like, great question. And I just started having fun with it because it was just the only way. One time I gave a cocktail training. One of my old clients hired me to do a cocktail class. Nobody drank on the entire class. Nobody brought the ingredients. Like I sent out the ingredient list. They had all this stuff. And I sat there and the only person who had anything in front of them was the client who hired me. And they brought in other clients. And like, so I was like, you told them all the stuff, right? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I guess I'm just, me and you were just drinking. So let's, I just sat there and they just watched. And I was like, why are you even watching? But they just did. And I was like, fuck it. We got drunk and had a great time. Like, you just got to go with it. But yeah, it is painful sometimes. So that's why you just have to take the piss out of it. Like, all right, we're just going to keep rolling. And hey, Kyle, you asked me to put a pin in it. You had an analogy.
I do. bartender, to me, there's a very analogous situation to bartenders reading the room. And one mistake I see with brand ambassadors all the time, to your point, Elaine, earlier of, I'm going to go in and I'm going to give all this detail. And if you're talking to a consumer group, most of them don't give two shits about all that level of minuscule detail. They're there to have fun. They're here to have some drinks. They're there, it's for an experience. And so you got to give them what they want. And I saw this a lot in the dawn of the mixology era when you go into bartenders and they're like, let me tell you about this tincture I made. And I'm like, I didn't ask you about your tincture.
Nobody gives a...
I nobody cares
go ahead, I'm on a date. I don't care. I want to talk to this human being over here who I might get to kiss later. I don't care.
You're not helping me.
So, right. And you're killing my buzz right now. So, that idea of reading the room and giving people what they want and not putting your ego centric. You're there to represent the brand. And for me, you're there to build a bridge from the brand to the people in that room. And they want to walk across a very specific bridge, based on, is it a trade group? Is it a consumer group? Is it a fun consumer group? Or is it like a nerdy consumer group? Yeah. And you got to build the bridge where they are and then have them have a wonderful experience on behalf of the brand that you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it seems so obvious because all of us have been doing this for a while, but it's not obvious for everybody when they first start out. So it's a really, really great point. It really is something a lot of times people point it out to you, like, or you learn because you bomb a few times. You're like, I know I'm pretty good at this. Why am I bombing? And then you're like, because I bored the fuck out of these people because they don't care about the things coming out of my mouth because they're not there for that. They're there to have they want to know two things, like, what is it? And where, and like, how can I drink it? That's it. That's all they want to know. All right. So let's talk about, actually, Nathan, we didn't get to talk about your presentation because you learned very specifically. You told me from doing competitions.
Yeah, it was definitely through competitions. I didn't realize, competitions to me, just expose the worst parts of you as a bartender. Like just all the bad habits that you have, I don't know where they come from, but you vomit all of those bad habits. And I remember doing World Class. I realized the first year, I think it was like 2014, I did it, how much I had my head stuck in the well because I was just such a heads down bartender and I couldn't keep my head. I was just so proud that I was just this fast service well bartender. I had no personal skills. I had no presentation skills. And I realized I could not walk into chew bubblegum at the same time. I still can't. But I just couldn't talk and make cocktails at the same time. I was just so used to just, Speedy Gonzalez sitting 5 cocktails out. And I really needed to work on it. And competitions like World Class, Bacardi Legacy, those were the competitions where you actually do have to not only make a great cocktail, but present and carry yourself in a way that like a brand ambassador does. So when I did start brand work, it was a very easy transition to me because I had done these competitions and I'd failed so greatly so many times and just ate shit so many times. Presenting was really kind of second nature by the time I had gotten into the role with Hendrix. So, but it was definitely those competitions literally just helped me step my game up and just my confidence 1,000%.
That's amazing. No, I love that because I think there's such a great opportunity that many people don't take advantage of. Trying to get people to enter World Class in America was one of the hardest things to do for a long time. I think it's gotten better, insane. But it was insane. Everybody was nope. And in Europe, they love it.
Well, we started back in I think the first time I submitted was 2013. They weren't even coming to Houston. They would only go to Austin. So for all the classes, we had to load up in a van and 5 of us would go to the World Class workshops. Because we really wanted to do it. And finally, when I made it in 2014, it was one of the biggest things I've ever done for my career. I don't know if I would even be here if I didn't do some of those competitions because it just led into so many things for me. Just being in front of Andy Seymour and seeing them work in the back of the house. That's how I got invited to Bar 5, which is how I got invited to go work with Hendrix. So it was just if it wasn't for these competitions, literally, it just literally snowballed into a lot of great successes for me.
Now, which is such a great point. Also, you said you bombed a few times, but you kept going back. which says a lot about your character as a person. Because some people bomb, and they're like, I'm never doing that again, right? Like, that was too hard to keep going back because you kept learning.
And I mean, honestly, the best parts of competitions is the networking, but then also seeing what other people are doing around the nation. You take that back to your hometown, and that was my favorite part of competitions. Winning was the cherry on top, and I think the more you compete, you kind of have that recipe, and it just becomes, you kind of know what you need to do to win after losing, but you have to lose a shit ton of times to realize that a lot, and you have to bomb a lot and just try different things and really get your personality. I've seen bartenders in Houston start competing, and I remember they used to talk about me like, you used to beat me at everything, and I was like, no, I was just experienced. And then eventually they get experience, and then they start doing national stuff. So yeah, you just got to keep throwing yourself into it.
I know. I will say the only person I think people probably curse at, didn't a girl from France win her first time competing?
Oh yeah, first competition. Yeah,
first competition. She was the first time, but she said she worked on it for a year. Like her team all like worked with her, and like that's all she did. Like she was like really focused. But first time out, I was like, wow, it's an insane thing. But all right, so I want to talk about also, you talked about a little bit in the beginning, is that you got a new job as a multicultural brand ambassador in Atlanta. So tell us what that role is going to involve and why it's such an important position for you.
Man, I could not ask for a better role. It's literally a dream job. But just me being in the industry for as long as I have, I was one of the only like Black faces going to some of these conferences and which was completely fine. But then I come back home and I see so many great bartenders, talented bartenders that are just stuck in the same space, and they don't have access or they don't have the know-how to expose themselves to these things. I was fortunate because I was crazy, actually. Like nobody was like spending their own money to go to Tails and taking off for 2 weeks to go to Portland Cocktail Week and all these other things. Like people didn't know that was a thing, but I did it, and it's led to all these great successes. And now it's a lot easier to see kind of the career path as a bartender or a brand ambassador. It's a little bit more laid out, but it's still not very clear to a lot of bartenders. And so this role, I think, especially for people of color, is going to just open up a lot of things. And the Bacardi portfolio has really done a great job. And I know a lot of other brands are doing it as well, to specifically focus towards the Black and Brown market, because they're thriving. They're buying products. I know even throughout COVID, a lot of these bars have like just thrived, but the knowledge, the skill set, it's still not, there where I believe it could and should be. So I really look forward to jumping into this role and really just helping Black and brown communities just step up their game. And then also just having bartenders just love what they do and be as passionate for being a bartender and proud to be a bartender like I am.
That's awesome. That sounds like a really exciting role. And Kai, I know this is really important for you, for your team that you're building, that you want to make sure you have a very diverse team. And we want to talk about that a little bit, about how you're building your team.
Yeah, I'm happy to. And Nate, I think about your new role. One thing we're building with the ACSA, the American Craft Spirits Association, is a program for all kinds of communities that are traditionally have been marginalized, to be able to reach into those communities and bring people into actually the distillery space, and have a focused effort to have more female representation across multiple ages, ethnicities, all kinds of backgrounds.
That's awesome.
And get them the training into being a distiller and be able to move on. So I think concentrated efforts like the program you're starting, Nate, which is so exciting, and I know Atlanta is so lucky to have you, and it will be so well embraced by that amazing community. I love the Atlanta community of our business. And what we're working on, Garrett Oliver, the brewmaster for Brooklyn Brewing, actually has started the Michael James Jackson, not the glove and the but whiskey beer hunter version, which is a scholarship program for leaders, specifically to be the head brewer, to be the boss for people of color. So check that out. Free plug for you,
That's awesome.
Garrett, because I love what you're doing with MichaelJamesJacksonFoundation.org. So these initiatives are starting. We've done a lot. Was on the board of the Bartenders Guild. That's how I met Nate. Nate was one of our earliest leaders, going on his own dime to these conferences, like he said, and Nate, is crazy. As he said, he self-admitted it, of jumping through every open door and finding every opportunity. Not everybody feels that way, right? And especially in communities where there have been challenges, where there has been systemic racism or other limitations put on them, an open door is usually kicked down by a white cisgender male because every space is safe for them. And not everybody knows what's on the other side of that door that's open. And so what I've learned through my own work, with people like Jess Pettit at Good Enough Now, as part of bringing a culture of inclusivity, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging to the Bartenders Guild, is making sure that those places are safe, and that we're out there doing what we can to get into all communities. Within Samson and Surrey, the challenges are real to find people who are willing to take a chance on a brand new company where we're all wearing 20 hats and you don't know if it's going to be there the next day. We're going to be there the next day. We're in a good place. But it can be a scary proposition. And again, we tend to reach into the networks that we know. Yeah. And so if you're not challenging yourself to get into communities where you're not comfortable, you're not used to things, or have networks that reach into them deeply, you've got to build an infrastructure that can do that. We have some nice diversity within my ambassador team. We can always do better, but it's a conversation that we have, and anywhere, even outside of the ambassadors who we work with, both internally and as consultants, we also still reach out and hire people for ad hoc work and for event work, that we try to, again, find new faces from new communities, and we're thoughtful. It's part of our process to be as forward thinking and do the hard work to get new and exciting faces involved. I think, like you were talking about with the bartenders, Nate, of who's up and coming, and then, well, let's go find them, and let's go find them not in the same 10 restaurants that get all of the attention
exactly.
all the time.
Yeah. That's been my success as a brand ambassador here in Houston, was just being able to be all things to all people. I think as a brand ambassador, if you're going to be successful, you have to be willing to go anywhere and do anything when it comes to your product. Grey Goose kind of forces you to do that because it's everywhere. But, at the same time, I remember telling one of my market managers, he's like, Nate's the only person that will go give a training at a strip club at 11 o'clock at night and then turn around and go to a fine dining restaurant and do a happy hour in the richest part of town. And yeah, I'm down. Wherever, if they're buying Goose, let's do it. Exactly. But yeah, that's just the key to how I've at least been successful, is just being willing to go anywhere and talk to everybody about the product.
No, I think that you guys have both made some great points, and it is harder work, right? You do have to make that extra effort because everybody in their comfort zone, but it's worth it to get that, the different voices, the different ideas. And sometimes, and once you start, then it does become easier because then you made your own networks in these other neighborhoods and things like that. And then they know people. And a lot of times, I think, Nate, to your point before, is sometimes just people just don't know certain opportunities exist. If you're not in the right, I always say, I live on the Upper East Side, right? So very, very privileged place to live. And I always think to myself, okay, I would never know about the gifted, and I'm going to take this to a parent relationship here. I would never know about the gifted and talented program that existed in the schools if I wasn't in the playground that I was in, right? So I was in that playground. So I was talking to one parent who knew about that program because they don't really talk about the gifted and talented program. So it's something they advertise. So you just have to know the right networks or parents. And I'm like, well, who's telling the other parents who are in other neighborhoods where this would be a benefit to? And it's something that I know the city's working on. It's a thing because, and it's the same thing in our community. It's if nobody lets people know that world class exists, Nate, if you didn't Letter or Bacardi Legacy and going to other bars and saying, hey, do you know this even exists? Because other people aren't going there and telling them, then they won't take those opportunities. They won't build their network. So I think it's such an important thing that you guys are both doing in the industry. So that's
and that it's okay to fail. I mean, I've fallen on my face. I can't even, you can tell by the face. How many times? Nate, you were talking about it too. I think people go in and they're like, well, if they even know who Charles Jolie is, like, well, I'm not Charles Jolie. I'm like, nobody expects you to be. Go out there, do it, fail, and learn. And that is, it takes a very specific kind of courage. And it takes, I think, a very specific kind of encouragement from somebody who becomes or becomes a mentor to like, it's okay to go out there and fail, because we're all going to be up here to help dust you off and go back out again. And if you have the courage to do that, you're going to grow exponentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as many, even like doing brand work, as many successes as you have throughout your career, like I know for the last 3 years, I've had so many more fails. Like it's everybody sees all the little things and then it kind of adds up into, yeah, you're a successful brand ambassador. But yeah, I messed up so many times. It's ridiculous. Weekly. I mean, it's just, you're gonna fuck up a lot. But you just keep rolling with it.
Keep growing that. And go ahead, Kyle.
Oh, the job of I have to remind people of this all the time. The job of the brand ambassador is to make it look effortless and awesome and aspirational. And so, your social media feed is all Ibiza and parties and good times. I've never been to Ibiza. It sounds very nice. But meanwhile, you're not Instagramming yourself doing your expense account at 3 a.m. because it's fixed, or they shut your card off. It's not me entering my reports and my day of admin. Like it's like hospitality. All of the stuff that goes on back of the house, that goes on in the off hours to make that a seamless experience for the diner, for the guest. It's the same thing for the ambassadorial job. It's 24/7, one way or the other. And if you're doing it right, it looks effortless because you put so much effort into doing it, failing so many times that you don't celebrate to get those wins that look amazing when you celebrate those.
Oh yeah, and a lot of planning.
True.
A lot of planning. So much planning. If you don't plan, your life is just a disaster. And if you're not organized, it's like you have to create your systems to make sure that everything's, because you're talking to so many people all the time, and to be able to keep them all organized is probably one of the key things for our job. All right. So I want to talk about let's talk about this. So we already kind of talked about it a little bit, Kyle, the different program you're building at Samson Surrey, because I thought it was kind of interesting. You also talked about you find people their skill sets. You're like looking at their specific skill. You mentioned something about finding their specific skill sets to help enhance those, and like explain more of it, because I kind of got it yesterday, but not all of it. But I knew it was something about skill sets, enhancing them, and then finding their gaps and helping them fill those in. Or am I getting that kind of right, but kind of wrong?
Yes. A couple of parts to that. So, again, gloriously, I guess, luckily, being around kind of from the dawn of ambassadorship in the US, I've gotten to have lots of talks with folks like Charlotte, who have run one of the most admirable advocacy programs in the world, and has really been the sharpest tip of the spear, I would say. I think of who's had the same job for the last 12 years. And Charlotte's been rapidly promoted throughout William Grant, but she's like the only person at the same company who I met 12 years ago who's still there that I can think of. Bridget Albert at Southern Wine and Spirits. That's about two that I can think of off the top of my head. Very few. And I think she has built, and William Grant as one company has built a great model for it. But I know in our conversations also we've talked about the demands of being the face of Hendrick's Gin, and the travel it takes makes it very hard to have work-life balance, to be able to be home and part of a community. So I took that when we were building the advocacy and the ambassador program for Samson and Surrey to heart. And I really looked at, I think I can train generally talented people across the categories we work on: gin, whiskeys, both international and US, and agave spirits. And I can get everybody to a level that is constantly learning and developing. Like Nate said, if you think you know it all, you're wrong, and you're the worst person for the job, because the more you learn, the humbler you should be that you're never going to get it all. Do your best. But I'm going to find people who are so deeply rooted in their communities. They are, they're seen as mentors. They're seen as beloved parts and integral parts of the North Bay, California, and San Francisco, Oakland area of Houston, not Texas. That's hard, but like, hey, I'll take somebody in Houston. We have Chris Dempsey in Dallas, who is one of the kind of fomenters of the mixology in the original days without the ego, right? That has traditionally been a trap for so many. And you find those folks and you're like, you're the right person because people are going to listen to you. You have all the integrity in the world. And for me, the ambassador job is the brands trade on the integrity of the ambassador in the markets and the presentations and the things that they do, the work that they do. And likewise, the ambassador trades on the integrity of the spirit. If the spirit or the wine or the beer or the Red Bull or whatever you're ambassadoring for doesn't have integrity, then you're really challenged to maintain your own integrity.
It really is.
To go out there with that schlock that
I don't recommend it.
You got to put your head down and just.
I don't recommend it. It's the number one thing that people say on the show is don't work for a brand that you don't feel good about and don't love. It's hard to fake that. Yeah, you really can't do it. And so Diageo tried to make me do that once. I was like,
we had a few of those there too at Diageo. We're like, that not yet, and then the brand would go away and we'd come back. You're like, oh, that makes sense the way it is.
Yeah.
So to answer the question more directly, what I tried to do with most of my team didn't have a lot of ambassadorial experience. They were integral parts of the hospitality community they came from. Like, I will teach you PowerPoint. I will teach you presentation skills. I will teach you whatever it is you need to know to do this job. I need a hard worker who's proven a part of the community and who has great heart and great spirit, because you can't train those things. And if I get that, the rest I will identify with you. And we do something I've never personally had anywhere I've worked in my whole history, a career development action plan with my whole team of what are we going to do this year? What are we going to do 2 to 5 years? What are we going to do 5 years plus to get you where you want to be, both within our company and maybe it's beyond, I don't know. But let's talk about that and work towards actionable steps to get you there as part of your compensation. We're craft spirits. We can't overpay anybody. So we have to find ways to take care of these amazing hearts, these amazing people. And that's one thing that we try to offer. And again, get a team that's, if I've got all alphas who are all about being on stage all the time, all I've got is noise. I need some structural people. I need some great on-stage people. I need some big energy and some quiet energy. And just like you're building any team, that's going to give you the personalities and the skill sets that give you well-rounded, supportive, engaged teamsmanship.
No, I think that's such a great way of looking at it. And it's so true. And the fact that you're giving them goals and actually working with them to make sure they achieve them is a godsend, I think, for most people, because that's another thing we talk about on the show. It's like you have to have goals, because then if you don't have goals, you don't know where you're gonna go. Suddenly 2 years have passed and you're like,
you're just kind of floating. Yeah,
you're kind of floating. And once you discover what your goals are, then it's amazing how much it will then direct you to, oh, this is my goal, so I'm going to make sure I go to that meeting because that's part of something I want to learn to get to that goal. Or I'm going to take that class now. It became available, or the seminar is happening. I'm not going to attend that one. I'm going to attend this one because that helps me with my goal. And if you don't have a goal, then you don't know which direction to go in. You're kind of just floating, and you're not taking the steps that you need to get to that next place. So I think that's great. I mean, I asked Nate yesterday, I said, what's your next goal after this? And he said, national brand ambassador and then global brand ambassador. And I was like, those are all good goals.
It's step by step. You never notice your progress until you just, I don't know if you take some time, but I mean, started off part-time Sailor Jerry at dive bars, just, giving out free tattoos to people and pouring rum down people's throats. And to be at this point, it's really crazy, but it's little baby steps.
Oh God. Yeah, it really, really is. And I think we talked about this a little bit already. We both have kind of touched about the fact that this role is so misunderstood, right? It is such the role that nobody understands. And after having so many conversations about it with so many brand ambassadors across the country and around the world, nobody's job is the same. Everybody I talk to, I mean, there are definitely some fundamental things that everybody needs to know. There's some core essential skills, but what your company requires of you and also what you bring to the table will probably change your path. You can make yourself your own little role based on your skill sets if you talk to people. But Kyle, you kind of talked about some of the things you teach people. I just want to I don't want to go down too far in the route, but if there's anything essentially, like you think that's something that's nobody ever teaches you, but it's essential, like it's just something everybody had to learn on the job, you just figured it out eventually on the way, and you're like, fuck, why didn't somebody tell me that a long time ago? Kyle, Nate, I'll start with you. Is there anything on the job? Like, I know you said, you didn't get that much, you got training, but there are certain things you had to learn.
I guess there's a couple things. One thing is clean up your social media. So I'm from that generation that didn't have social media, like all the way up to probably like 22, 23. So I definitely, when I started, didn't really pay attention to what I was putting out there. And I mean, once you start getting noticed and once you start being, it still to this day shocks me how many eyes you have on you by posting something. And so I think one of the quickest ways to lose your job or to really piss people off is your social media. And I've learned that the extremely hard way, but that is one thing that I know, like, you have to keep that clean, and you have to constantly watch who you engage with, what you are engaging with, because nowadays, like, there's a paper trail for everything. So yeah, that's huge to me.
I think that's a big one. And Kyle, is there anything, I know we didn't learn, Diageo didn't really teach us a lot of things. We kind of figured it all out on the way. For you, is there anything you're like, all right, I make sure my brand ambassadors know this, because I think this is the most essential. I mean, I know there's lots, but is there anything, when it comes to, like, I don't know.
I think it's your point, Elaine. I got a big binder of like how the agency works, but there's still no instruction manual for being a great ambassador. It is trial by fire and talking to colleagues, and like, I had no idea that's how things worked. I think for me, and Nate has a great point, that comes up all the time, and I tell people, your social media, so many people have not gotten calls from me when they've applied for roles, because I look them up first. And I'm like, oh, nope. Those choices right there are the antithesis of what a brand ambassador needs to do. And that's sad, because in the modern era, you pay for those social media choices, as we see all the time. 8 and 10 years down the road, unfairly, when you've probably evolved as a person significantly from what you posted in 2012. But I think positivity, and maybe that's just a personal thing for me, but there is so much negativity in the world. And I see so much in our industry of people pulling others down, and I don't know if it's to build themselves up or what it is, but like, you don't need to dog on somebody else's program or somebody else's success or somebody else's spirit. Like, I don't know how that helps anybody. That negativity just swirls around, and it's not something I want to live in. Positivity, and I know I just talked to somebody who was like, man, I'm learning so much, unlike with the previous person. And I'm like, you could say everything you said right up to the previous person bit, and everybody feels good. And as soon as you add that last bit in, like, everybody's like, yeah, man, that little bit of negativity, it goes so far. So I always say, if you can't say, it's the old grandma adage, if you can't say something nice, don't say it. And generally speaking, I've been in this business for well over 2 decades, and I'm sure there's people out there who have plenty bad to say about me, but if I make some calls, I usually get a call back. There's a lot of great people that I've had the opportunity to work with over the year, that I still get to work with, who are still around themselves a couple of decades later, and mostly because the high road, the positive road, doing what you say you're going to do, not talking crap behind somebody's back, not saying anything on social media that you shouldn't be saying. Yeah. And that seems to be, I'm still here, still making a living, doing what I love to do 20 years later. So being positive, I think, is something that everybody should continue to focus on as much as possible. I
don't really know of any brand ambassadors that make it in the industry without, like, that doesn't have, like, you can't have too many enemies. The more, like, if you keep getting added to people's shit lists, like, eventually it's going to catch up with you.
It's you're gonna get canceled yourself. It's like suddenly you're gonna went after people, and then suddenly they're gonna be like, all right, you're now on the hit list. Like, somebody's gonna find a reason to take you down.
I've seen it locally so many times, just people just keep, like, burning bridges, and it's just completely come back to eat them and just hurt them.
Yeah, I mean, that note, I mean, my biggest thing, and again, just like you, Kyle, I literally, there are people I will not have on the show because I've gone through their social media, and I just am like, nope, You are just not a person I want to be associated with because you're too negative and you're too judgmental, and nope, not going to happen. And I definitely know brands because people ask me to hire people all the time. I'm the person that so many people turn to me. They're like, Elaine, do you have any recommendations? And it's like, I have my list and I have my nope, never list. You're just not getting, yeah. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you. Yeah. Positivity is, attitude is key. But yeah, exactly. I was going to say, to wrap up that quote, I was going to say the other thing, taking into a different fact, also wait, to actually end it. I was going to say on that note, call people. If you have a problem with somebody says something, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
People might say something that does not come across the right way. And then somebody takes it the wrong way. And we all know that, right? And if you have it and you actually had some relationship with that person, like you've had drinks with that person, you've hung out and you kind of know them, but you're like, oh, maybe they really are an asshole and I didn't know. Maybe check in, maybe be like, hey, dude, or text them and be like, what you said on there, or she said, like, that was not cool.
Even text, like sometimes text get
did you know?
Screwed.
Yeah, people have texted me sometimes because I didn't even know. Like, I'm like, oh my God, is that what that looks like? I'm like, I'll take that down right away. And I'm like, thank you so much, because I didn't know the thing that came. I didn't mean it that way. It was a joke or whatever. And I've literally been thankful. And it was like you, Kyle, I'm sure there's a few people out there that do not like me. But I think mostly just people think I'm boring. So other than that, I'm just like, I'm good with that. I'm a nice person. I'm like, but I'm sure there's some people who just don't like me. But I can live with that. I think I put enough good vibes in the world. But again, text me. If you have some problem, just send me a text. All right, so let's move on from there. Okay, so Kyle, because I did want to talk about the fact that you owned a liquor store. You owned a craft liquor store at one part of your career, because the off-premise has become a bigger focus for most brand ambassadors when the pandemic hit. And it was a world that they never entered before. It was like never part of our KPIs. I remember when I was a brand ambassador, it was part of my job. And then I was like, why am I here? Like, it was just, they kind of took it off. So what are some of the things that you see? Like you had to deal with sales reps, you've had to deal with brand ambassadors, you know, when somebody comes into your store, like what are some of the things that a way somebody can bond with somebody? You know, like you were a craft guy, so you were probably easier to bond with because you actually gave a shit about the things you were carrying. Where other liquor store owners don't drink, it's just a business. So how do you teach your brand ambassadors, like how to approach different accounts, and what mistakes have you seen people make?
It's such a great point. There are so many liquor store owners, if we want to say, you know, off-premise owners who don't drink. And so if your whole strategy is liquid to lips and we have the best juice, that goes right out the window the minute that you walk in the door, if that's all you've got to roll on. You know, and we, thankfully, for a small company like we had a really successful, as much as you can, through this global pandemic, where our brands were built in the on-premise. We were living in there in the brand life, life cycle, and then we were forced, as everybody was, to really do more focus on the off-premise than ever for our customers to go find us and for us to get through, which, you know, knocking on wood, we did. But I know a lot of the conversations that I've had with my team, both our sales team, my advocacy team, it's all commercial effort, right, was more important than ever, because this is yet a different language and a different skill set, to go in and observe, to go in and listen, to go in and ask questions, to understand what each buyer is looking for, what inspires them. Are they mostly price sensitive? And everybody's more than one note, right? But are they mostly price sensitive? Are they mostly story and quality sensitive? Are they mostly, is this going to sell sensitive? Like, there's so many different ways. But if you don't know that buyer, and you don't know, I think as experienced on-premise bar people, restaurant people, you walk in and you have a natural sense to audit. What's this restaurant about? What's that back bar look like? How's this menu layout? You do that without even necessarily realizing you're in analysis mode. But you probably, most ambassadors, don't know how to audit instantly, automatically, that off-premise layout. And don't know things like, end caps and shelf stacks and case cards And, depending on what state you're working in, RIPS in New Jersey and the importance of being price listed, or if you're in a franchise state and you're with multiple distributors, there's so many aspects. And so what I've always told my folks is, especially the last year, it's never been more important. We've got to be able to send customers from our bars or from our online courses to the local corner bottle shop to get our stuff. So how do we have those conversations? How do we ask questions and see, what do you need from me to make this work for you in your particular bottle shop to be successful? And I know personally, like you said, I was running a craft bottle shop, the antithesis of the big box retail. And I'd have guys used to, almost all of my reps early were male. That changed eventually as I pulled in some of my friends from on-premise who would also call on my store. I'm like, make it happen. I don't care how you do it. I know it's not the channel. I don't care. You know what I want. You know what I like.
Yeah.
And so people would come in and like, well, where's your lottery? I'm like, I don't sell lottery tickets, man. And right away, your vodka bottle with the LCD screen, that is not speaking to me or whatever. And the fact that you pitched it to me without saying, I need a favor. Can you do me a favor? I can do this for you. I'll do that all day. But like just coming in and like, this is going to be great for your customers shows me you didn't do your homework. You don't know me. You don't understand my concept. And I don't really want to work with you probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found it was really useful. One of my clients, when the pandemic hit, we just signed a consulting project, and to build on your point, Kyle, about knowing the customer, right? So we just built, consulting. And then of course she's like, yeah, so I don't think I'm going to need you as much. So I was like, well, how can I help you? She's like, well, we are doing a lot of off premise and we want to get in a lot of stores. So I started calling all the liquor stores and I learned so much. Like she gave me a list, like here's all the stores. They were all accounts she was with Drizzly. And just from calling them, and I've recommended other brands, I was like, I would call them it's kind of like bars, a Monday through like a Wednesday. Like I would never call on Thursday and Friday because that's when they started getting really busy. I would then Monday through Wednesday, and not after 3:30 because then they would get busy then too. So it's like a bar when their busy hours come. And just calling and just being like, so, it was for an RTD, like, do you carry RTDs? Like, hi, I would introduce myself and then I would ask if the buyer was there. And if they weren't, then I'd find out their names. But then I would just be able to talk like, hey, do you have a minute? Like, do you carry RTDs? What are you carrying? What day can I drop off a sample? I would find out all this information. I would find out the buyer's name. And then so I would walk in prepared. I was like, hi, I'm the person, who called you on the phone. So it wasn't cold calling. I learned a ton about their store just by asking them questions like what their best sellers were. And most people were willing to give me a lot of information just by on the phone. They're like, because nobody ever asked them that. So
that's right.
They were
that
really
takes a certain amount of that takes a certain amount of guts too. We were talking about, the willingness. I think there's a whole generation now that orders everything online. That's like, if I don't have to talk to a human being, all the better. So picking up the phone and having a conversation, most are like, oh, this is new. Let's talk.
Especially these younger buyers, especially like they want to do everything by text and, rarely they get surprised when you call them. They really do.
Yeah. And they'll give up the world. And then you can walk in and be equipped and then you meet them where they are for your ongoing relationship. But versus the dreaded, the unwanted cold drop. Hey, I'm here. Can somebody meet with me? Even at a good hour, let alone at 4 p.m. right as they're coming off work. It's that kind of thoughtlessness grounds you and maybe ruins you for a while. That a little bit of homework up front. You said it earlier, Elaine. Just the organization and the plan. If you've got a plan and you build that idea of let's do some pre-work, so that I have a great chance to land this account. Because as soon as you make one bad misstep, like that legendary brand ambassador, 5 p.m. Friday night, want to talk about my 8 p.m. Friday night, want to talk about my rum? Can we pass these out to the bar? No, and never, ever.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah. We've all seen it. It's why I created my brand ambassador academy just for that. It was the inspiration.
If you learn one lesson, that's
that is it. But to your point, Kyle, also about what an end cap is or what a case card is. It's not terminology that as a brand ambassador or a bartender you would ever know. So it's learning what those items are, and then knowing when you go in the store, like I used to go in to the same client. I would not talk to anybody. I would do like just a walk around, just check out the store, see what they're selling. If I didn't have the conversation, and then I might call, and then I make an appointment. But I've leased on their work, because I've learned if you go on people's websites, most of the time they're not up to date. That's what I also learned. I would go on their website just in case I was cold calling completely. And I'd like, and then I go in the store, I'm like, oh yeah, your website hasn't been updated in a very long time. They'd be like, no. I was like, all right, well, that was completely pointless of me doing that. But great stuff. It is something as a brand, like I think everybody got to learn. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, you know, one of the great places you can go to get that information, to learn that lingo and dialogue, is your distributor partner. If you're working directly for the supplier, go, you know, talk with that channel manager, talk with your off-premise sales leads, talk with the district managers in the off-premise, ride along with them, and just be silent. You know, listen to them and their talk and what the buyers are asking them for, and vice versa. And that conversation in the car with them, you start to learn the lingo, and you start to learn what people are looking for and what they hate, importantly too, that then you're more equipped without that distributor salesperson to go in and have a dialogue that's going to get you somewhere.
That's a very good point to me, because coming from the bar side, I did not know the sales side. I didn't know the off-premise, and I really had to lean a lot on the like most of my distributors. They taught me most of the sales lingo, case thing, you know, all that jargon. I literally learned that from like Southern Glazers or just Republic like reps that I just did ride-alongs with. That was so key for me, especially now that a lot of these brands are hiring. They're hiring bartenders that have zero sales experience usually. So that was key for me in the first few years.
No, it really is. You can learn so much from your distributor sale, and just having that pre-conversation, be like, okay, so who are we meeting with? What is their personality? What are the things that they like to hear? Like, are they really into spirits? Are they not? Like, are they just like about like they want the free TV? Do they, you know, what is the thing that's going to win them over? You've dealt with them a long time, you know. It is definitely essential. You should have that plan. Like, what's our plan when we go in there? What other products are you presenting? Am I presenting first? Because sometimes I'll go in there and they have 6 other brands they're going to be presenting. It's like, great, I understand that this is I'm not your main priority. So can I present first?
Exactly. Let me get this out the way.
Can we get it out of the way before he gets lost in your 6 bottles of wine that you're going to be tasting them on?
And you got to pick up a check, and you got to
yeah, exactly, all that stuff. So like, let's make a plan. And sometimes you have to be a little bit of a bully. Be like, I just want to do my thing. Can we just do my thing first and like get it, you know, let's get it done. And they'd be like, well, it wasn't, I know that wasn't your plan, but let's just go with it. Trust me on this one. Let's just go with it, you know? All right.
Well,
so
and in their defense,
go ahead. Yeah.
In their defense, they often weren't trained about how to have a successful work with either.
That's
right?
True. Yeah.
So what I found is like that important to like, where are we going to meet? Let's meet for coffee beforehand, and let's get our day planned out, and let's talk about, what do you need to get done today? Check pickups, item returns, you know, what is on your agenda? How can I help you? And then here's the stuff I got to hit. And especially on this account list you've given me for the day, what I would love to do. So like, let's win the day together. So we have a great recap, right? And also I'm going to need a recap. So I'll write some notes down and share them with you so that we can share them with your bosses. But like, just helping set the agenda for them and letting them know, I'm here to help you win, and I need you on my team. And how are we going to do that based on this account run you've got? Then it removes all of the disasters. And I know all 3 of us have been on some of the just dumpster fire work with imaginable. And you got to manage those expectations with them up front, friendly and professional, as we do with everything.
Yes. And helping them, and also letting them know, I'm here to help you. Yeah. How can I help you? It's not about me. How can I help you? You know, we both have the goal. Like, you have the brand, I'm here to help you sell it. So, you know, how can I help you? And also I learned you don't have to spend the whole day with them. Sometimes it's like, what is your day? And you're like, oh, well, I'm looking through the account list and there's only 3 that I really like. This is even a good fit. Like, there's no, but if I can help you in those other accounts, like, you need to come to 1 or 2, because sometimes they'd be like, actually, like, this account really needs some other cocktails. Like, can you just help with the menu? Like, and somebody, I'll be like, all right, fine. Like, we could do that too. You know, it's not going to help, but like, I can be that tool. But I'm like, these other 2, like, do I really need to be with you on that? And being in city, I'm like, I'll go off and work and I'll meet you at the next account. You can go do those things and I can do other things, because your time is valuable. So is theirs. So knowing that.
One
Yeah.
If their order cutoff is 5, then like at 4, I'm like, let's not do anything at 4, because you're gonna get, your phone's gonna blow up. And I've been that buyer. It's 4:59, and I need 6 cases of this and the thing, and it's late. I had a big rush at lunch. So at 4 o'clock, I'm like, you go take your orders and do what you got to do, or get us started with the buyer, and then I'll do a half hour with the buyer if they want that, and you go do orders, because that last hour is, you need to focus on your job, and that's getting your orders in, and that's not me. So that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. But I think that's such a great point, because when you're sitting there like, why am I sitting in this dude's car while he's just typing on his computer?
You're just like awkwardly.
Talking like, 1 minute, like, tell me, well, we're gonna go. And I'm like, I don't need to be here for this. Like, I understand your job, and when you're new, you don't know that you have this option, because you don't know that you can leave. You're like, you're not stuck to this person. You can be like, this was great. You have stuff, I have stuff to do, so I'm going to go now. I mean, sometimes it sucks when you're in another state and you don't have a car and you're in the middle of nowhere, but sometimes you're like, why don't you just drop me off at that bar over there? I'm going to go. I'm going to do some account support.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what I do. But know that. All right, so we're going to wrap it up with, this is my favorite question to ask. All right, so throughout our careers, we've all made mistakes. We've also all learned some best practices where you're like, fuck, I wish somebody told you that. And we've mentioned a few here today. But if there's any like one or two, like, Nate, you've mentioned, like, you've made quite a few, you're like, I've made so many mistakes, like a mistake you might've made that you're like, oh God, dude, don't ever do this. I did this, and I'm going to tell you right now, just don't do it. And this is what I learned from it. Anything?
Don't overpromise things. Don't, like, I would say, I mean, I'm probably going to think of something afterward, but like, under promise, over deliver. If just don't, like, if especially when it comes to large brands, I would say I've been lucky enough to work for big brands, and people kind of think that you can give them the world. And I know, like, when I first started, I was so excited. I just wanted to get wins, all over the place. And I was just like, oh yeah, I can do that. And just, no, hold the brakes, under promise. Maybe I can do it. Maybe I have the budget for it. I'll let you know. But like, and then when you over deliver, you look great, but never over promise anything.
I think those are great words of advice. Kyle?
We've talked about a few of them, but I think another important one for me is, if we want to take positivity one step further, like, help everybody, lift everybody up. I know I've been in the position where former bosses of mine have worked for me down the road. I don't know if it's been reversed yet, but it probably will be at some point as I get into my doddering old age. And so any opportunity I feel like that I have with my platform that I can help 5 people do more, and especially those random acts of kindness where you just see, thanks to things like the double-edged sword of social media, that somebody's hurting, or somebody is asking for help, or they're not even asking, but you could help them, even with just an encouraging word, like, reaching out and giving them that, and helping lift up people who can use it. I think really carry in a world, as we've talked about, where your network of people that and people who want to work with you, or who have enjoyed working with you before, they call you for that next project. When you keep your word and do what you say, they call you for that next project. Busy people tend to get things done because they manage expectations of, yes, I can do that and do it well, or I can't. So being able to stand up for yourself and know what your limitations are, but helping everywhere you possibly can, I think always comes back around to help you in the long run.
No, I think those are great words of advice. It really does. The more helpful you are, and not even just kind, and then you are supporting of other people. I think about, I wouldn't be an entrepreneur today and doing what I did if I didn't build a lot of bridges and try to help, because I now have a lot of our old clients from Diageo and things of that nature, are still calling me today, like, and they're like, hey, Elaine, I'm doing this project. Can you work with this? And I'm really grateful for that. Like, that those old relationships are coming back, and just a lot of people I've met in the industry have really helped me build my business. And we've got my words of advice are, and Nate, this might help you since you still this role, but we talked about this, Kyle, was, sometimes you have to learn how to say no, right? So this is a big one, learning how to say no, because I was telling Kyle a story, like, I became like, many of us did, you become like the go-to person. You're like the easy fix. You're like, oh, well, this like, and it's a job that's really kind of, I hate to say beneath you, but it is beneath you. It's a job that you're really busy. You have a bigger role. You're doing bigger projects. You're really helping, drive bigger initiatives, right? And suddenly somebody's calling you because you're like the easy fix. And it's like, for do a sampling in a liquor store, that it's not like the big important liquor store. It's not like the Astor Wines or whatever it is. It's just like the regular, Joe Schmo liquor store, and it's 3 hours away. And they just called you, not because it's just because you're the first person on the list. And it's just like, but it's really not something. So I had to learn to finally say, and I did say it to one of my bosses, I'm like, do you know how much money you pay me? Like, this is not the job you want me doing. I was like, it's a waste of your time. It's a waste of my time and salary. I was like, but I wouldn't never say that to them. I said it to them later on over drinks. I was like, this is why I told you no. But it was more like, hey, I get this is important. I have some other projects going on. Would it be okay if I just recommended some of the top promotional people that we have, and like that they could do the job? And it was always like, oh yeah, that would be great. Because I realized it took me a long time to realize, I'm like, oh, you're not calling me because you think I'm great. You do, but you're just calling me because you just don't want to deal with this anymore. And
easy fix, yeah.
I'm the easy fix. So you have to come back with a solution. So if you're going to say no, I'd be like, no, but I have a solution for you because I just think this would be better for the suited for the job. I was like, and that usually worked. So learning that to be able to say no and then offering a solution.
You said that much. That's another thing I've had to learn is you have to season your words very carefully.
Yeah. Yes.
Younger me would have been like, hell no, I'm not doing that. Like, yeah. Find somebody else. Like, sorry, bud.
Yeah.
Nate, I've had that conversation with I don't know how many of my ambassadors of if you work in restaurants and you're used to those like in the moment, very direct, maybe some salty language thrown in there of this is what I need right now and this is how it's going to work. And then like usually after the shift, you have a drink and you blow off steam and you're like, it's all good. It was in the moment. I've found ambassadors who live that life and then they're out with somebody who's in a more corporate structure who's never been in that intensity. And that happens. And it's what they've always done for how many years. And I've got, I don't know how many emails and HR talks that I have to have because of something that was second nature. And nobody ever taught them. Don't talk like you've talked to your colleagues your whole career. It's a different ball of wax. And you cross that bridge when it comes up sometimes.
It's such a good point. I really wish somebody would have told me that. Because, definitely I was like, restaurant speak. I'm like dropping F-bombs.
I always tell people to model the conversation. So when you're emailing, if they're being very corporate, you have to be very corporate back. If they're being more casual, you can be a little more casual, but you should always be one step above, like just a tiny bit more, it's like mirroring the conversation, but if somebody's just like, hey dude, whatever. And then you come back and you're all like really structured, then they're like, all right. Like it's mirroring somebody. Yeah. But if it's somebody more senior, I'm always say, take it one step above. A great program, by the way, for corporate emails, by the way, Nate, Grammarly. It's amazing. It corrects.
Yeah.
I live by that. Nate, I mean, if you haven't, Kyle, if you've never seen it, it's fantastic. Grammarly, I don't put anything out there in the world or else it goes through Grammarly because it just corrects your language, it corrects your punctuation, it does all the things because,
it doesn't do listen, bacon. Asshole, to whom it may concern.
To whom it may concern. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think it does actually. It probably would.
Translates bartender speak.
Translates bartender speak. Well, gentlemen, this was fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been a really fun conversation. And Nate, great to get to know you. And Kyle, it's just really great catching up. And if you guys are in town for BCB, please say hello. I know Nate, Kyle, you said you're coming in. Nate, or did they send you in for?
I'm just trying to get to Atlanta. So once I get to Atlanta, I'll figure it out. But if not, well, I'll just go on my own dime like I always do.
Exactly. It sounds good. But gentlemen, thank you so much for all your time, and hopefully we'll chat soon. All right.
Absolutely.
Sounds great.
Cool.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Good to see you, Nate.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We're tuned in. Thank you. I always forget to do that.